The idea of starting a church has been brewing inside us for many years. And this past year, the little prayer emerged as a whisper in our hearts again. But this time it wasn't going back down as easy as it used to.
The more God was revealing the church that He was planting in our hearts, the more we began to see how He was weaving our stories together and how He was weaving our story with the story of the first church as found in the New Testament. It's a story of transformation. It's a story of a loving God relentlessly shaping His people into who He created them to be.
That's why the idea of transformation is so central to who we are at Soul City. A church that radically accepts someone right where they're at, but a church that lovingly expects that person to grow.
So the more we began to understand what this church was all about, the clearer it became to us where we would do it. What if we could take this idea of God's transformational love to the places of greatest exponential impact in our culture? Naturally, we began to look to the city. What if Soul City Church could exist in the most strategic neighborhoods of the most influential cities in our culture? We want to join up with God in His transformational love of the soul in the city to change the world.
We began to dream about how Soul City could be a church better 7 days out of the week as opposed to just one. That through making our church, our space, our resources, our gifts, talents, passions, and abilities of Soul City available as a gift to our neighborhood 7 days a week, well then we will see the city start to transform into what God intended it to be.
So we chose the city of Chicago because while it is the third largest city in the country, there's a surprising lack of new and young and innovative churches that are starting and surviving and thriving and actually making a difference in the city. We also chose it because, quite personally, it's a place where we have roots. It's the place where Jeannie and I met and fell in love. It's where we were married, started our family. It's where we started serving in ministry together. And it's the place that God planted the dream for this church in our hearts.
With this vision in our hearts, we began to ask God, how is this all going to happen? How are we going to be able to do this kind of church in the most strategic neighborhoods of the most influential cities in the country? How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to find the team? And how are we going to survive the Chicago winters?
So what we're seeing more and more these days is that all of our how questions are being brought back to the idea of who God is. That He is the one who invited us into this adventure, and He's the one that will lead us through it, and He is the one who will provide for us along the way. And that He is actually the one who is going to prompt and compel other people to join up in the story of Soul City Church.
God continues to answer our how questions by bringing absolutely incredible people around the vision of Soul City. From people who are praying for us, financially supporting Soul City, to those who are offering their time and talents and abilities, to those who are giving their lives to starting this movement of churches. God is answering how. With who?
Maybe God's inviting you to be a part of this whole idea of the who of Soul City Church. Maybe that means that you join our Be campaign and you give financially to support the vision of Soul City Church. Maybe God's inviting you to be a Soul City starter where you use your gifts and abilities with one of our volunteer teams to actually make this whole thing happen. Maybe it means that you join our prayer team where you regularly pray for the needs of Soul City Church and of the city of Chicago.
Most importantly, we hope that somehow the story of Soul City Church inspires you in your own journey of transformation, for you to become all of who God created you to be. That's what this is all about. That's what we're all about. That's Soul City Church.